Welcome. Take a moment to let your breath settle, to sink slowly into a gentler rhythm. You're not in any rush now. The world outside can wait. Tonight, we're going to visit a place that feels strangely familiar, yet entirely otherworldly. A place of chattering soot sprites and towering furnaces, of doors that open into different dimensions, a place where spirits cleanse their burdens, but where others never stop working. Those who stir vats before dawn, who haul towels soaked with river mud and dragon scales. Spirited Away is a story many remember for its vibrant colors, its mystery, and its quiet magic. But beneath the surface of the bathhouse's charm lies a world of invisible labor, relentless routine, and forgotten names. In this soft journey, we walk not beside Chihiro, the brave girl at the center of the story, but alongside those who scrub floors she treads, as if tiptoeing through steam. We'll explore their world gently, where gods recline in silence, and where power looks very different. First, we'll spend time in the shoesif. They wear the bathhouse workers. Then we'll drift through memory to trace the quiet sorrow of Haku, the river spirit with no river. Next, we'll explore the deeper cultural fabric of this place, the contracts, the gods, and the rituals drawn from old Shinto beliefs. And finally, we'll rise up quietly, carefully, to the upper floors. You don't need to keep your eyes open for this journey. You don't need to follow every step. Let your thoughts wander if they like. Let sleep take you if it comes. And now, let's begin down in the misty corridors, where the workers wait. Welcome to the bathhouse. The bathhouse breathes. You begin to notice it after a while. Not just the steam or the pounding of feet above, but the building itself. The way the walls creak and shift, the way doors close by themselves, even when no wind stirs. The floorboards pulse faintly under your steps, as if the place were alive. You don't question it. You stopped questioning long ago. You weren't hired here. Most workers weren't. They just drifted in, like you, from somewhere. Maybe they had names. Maybe not. Some remember another world, a bridge, a train, a gate with a red lantern. But most forget, eventually. You don't speak unless spoken to. When you do speak, it's in short phrases. Yes, honored guest. Right away. I'll clean it again. Even your voice begins to change. It softens, flattens. Not because you're calm, but because it's safer to stay small. The soot sprites are the only ones who seem truly free, but even they follow a rhythm, carrying coal day after day into the great furnace. Kamaji, the boiler man, rarely speaks, but he watches everything with his 6 arms and tired eyes. He's been here longer than anyone can remember. Maybe longer than the building itself. You sometimes envy him, not for his power, but for his detachment. He seems untouched by the guests, untouched by you, Baba. He just tends to the boiler. You, on the other hand, serve. You scrub tubs where river spirits have left oily sludge and broken tokens. You wash towels thick with hair, with moss, with things that don't have names. You sweep staircases that go nowhere, dust off statues that hum softly when touched.
Let's drift now, just a little higher in the bathhouse, past the boiler room, where soot sprites sleep in piles, past the kitchen, where knives clink rhythmically on chopping boards, up the narrow stairs, where the air is lighter and quieter. There, behind certain doors, you'll find Haku. He moves differently from the others. Where workers scurry and sweat, Haku glides. Where others bow, he stands straight. He speaks in clipped, calm tones, always polite, always precise. But behind his eyes, something is missing, something distant. Because Haku, you see, is not whole. You might know him as Yubaba's apprentice, the one who delivers orders, who transforms into a silver-white dragon, whose loyalty seems ... complete. But even in service, he feels apart. Not quite one of them, not fully present. And that's because Haku, like many spirits here, has forgotten who he is, not just metaphorically. He truly does not know his own name. It wasn't always this way. He moved between stones and tree roots, carried fallen leaves and tiny fish in his current. Children played in his shallows. Once, he was a river spirit, a quiet, flowing presence in the human world. She coughed and cried and clutched the reeds. He remembers faintly saving a girl once. She had fallen into him cold, frightened, and he carried her gently back to shore. Then she was gone, and not long after, so was he. The river dried. The bed was filled with concrete and steel. An apartment block now stands where he once meandered. With the river gone, Haku was unmoored, lost in form, lost in purpose. In the world of spirits, when you forget your name, you forget who you serve, what you protect, what you are. You become useful, controllable, empty. And that's when Yubaba found him. Under her watch, Haku became something else. Not a river, not a memory, but a servant. She gave him tasks, fed him spells, stripped him of questions. And for a time, it worked. He became her most trusted aide, calm, efficient, powerful. But there were cracks. He wandered at night, hovered over the lanterns like smoke, watched the water tanks behind the bathhouse as if listening for something, some distant babble of stream over stone. No one saw him smile. Not really, till Chihiro. She said his name. Kohaku River. And something opened. Not like a door flung wide, or like a memory surfacing through fog. A cool breeze across hot skin. He remembered the water, the reeds, the weightless body of a child in his current. And most importantly, he remembered who he was before he was useful. That's the thing about names in this world. They hold not just identity, but freedom. After the bathhouse, we don't see Haku again. Not truly. We know he promises to return to his river, to find what remains of it, if anything. But perhaps that's enough. Because in a place where memory is currency and forgetting is power, to even want your old self back is a kind of rebellion. You wonder now, how many others in the bathhouse have forgotten? How many were rivers, winds, lost spirits of cities drowned under progress? How many still hum songs they don't recognize? Just like Haku, just like you, it's hoping something stirs in the dark, but we won't linger on that. Let's move now, slowly, to the deeper structures behind the bathhouse, to the rules, the contracts, the strange systems that bind this world together. We'll explore what it means to sign your name away, and what older forces whisper beneath the floors.
Some spirits are born of stories, others of places. Haku was the latter, not a spirit of wind or fire or hunger, but of water, soft water, flowing gently through the edges of a quiet town. A river so ordinary that most people forgot its name. Not as grand deities in temples, but as subtle forces, in stones, in rustling branches, in cold streams that flow only during spring rains, even before it was gone. A protector of fish, of frogs, of splashing children and falling leaves, and Haku was one of them. He didn't need worship. He didn't demand offerings. He simply flowed. In the Shinto view of the world, everything has a spirit, even the unseen, especially the unseen. But when the river was buried, so was he. No one told him what to do next. It moves, but not with purpose, not with memory, not with soul. There are no road signs for forgotten gods, no instructions for displaced kami. He wandered, unanchored, ka, and turned through earth to carry away the weight of others. In the realm of spirits, a being without a name is like a boat without a rudder. And this is where Yubaba excels. She finds spirits like Haku, wandering, hollowed, strong, but unknowing. And she offers them something: structure, command, tasks, but at a cost. The kind that only grief can produce. Haku's power didn't fade when he forgot. He still held the strength of a river, the force to push through stone, to twist, but without memory. That strength became someone else's tool. Yubaba turned it inward, gave him spells to memorize, potions to deliver, orders to carry out. She trusted him not because he was loyal, because he was bound, not through force or argument, but through kindness, through stubbornness, through memory. Looking out over the sea of lanterns, not watching, listening, as if the wind might carry something back to him. A whisper of water, a child's laugh, the clatter of river stones tumbling together. And in a strange way, Haku seemed fine with it, calm, polite, efficient, but sometimes, late at night, workers would find him on the rooftop. He didn't cry, not outwardly, but there was a stillness to him. And then came Chihiro, clumsy, loud, out of place. She should have been a burden, but instead, she became a mirror. Water, especially flowing water, is sacred. It washes away forgetfulness. It restores clarity. A washing clean of service and spell work. She reminded him of something, and eventually, through name. It may be buried under roads, homes, shopping centers. You're the Kohaku River. It's a small line in the film, easy to miss. Spoken with childlike confidence, but for Haku, it was everything. A name, a purpose, a past. And with it, the bindings began to slip. In Shinto beliefs, purification is essential. In a way, remembering his name was Haku's own Miyazaki, a return, and once he remembered, he was no longer bound. He promised to find his river again, to return to his true place. We don't know if he ever did. In our world, the Kohaku River may not exist anymore, but perhaps that's the sadness at the heart of his story. Some spirits are lost not because they chose to leave, but because the world forgot them. Progress buried them. And in forgetting them, we forgot part of ourselves, too. But in remembering Haku's name, we remember something older. That names have weight. That even the smallest stream can hold meaning. That even lost spirits can return. If we care to listen, if we care to remember. Now, let's follow that current a little deeper, below the emotional dot, into the symbolic. Let's explore the structure that binds the bathhouse, the rules, the contracts, the spiritual traditions hiding in plain sight. Because behind the magic is an older truth, one inked in paper, sealed with names, and steeped in centuries of ritual. You begin to understand, slowly and quietly, that the bathhouse is not evil in the traditional sense. It does not roar or punish. It does not chain its workers or strike them down. Not all at once, but gradually through small compromises. The repetition of a new name, the forgetting of an old one, the absence of rest, the silencing of questions. Her twin sister Zaniba reveals this. The two are mirrors of each other, equal and opposite. In the Shinto worldview, the world is filled with kami spirits and presences that inhabit all things, from trees and rivers to stones and wind. These spirits are not judged by human ideas of morality, but are honored, appeased, and balanced through ritual. A river can be found again, even in the most controlled environment, even beneath the weight of centuries of ritual and expectation. Something soft and human remains. In a world ruled by rules, the smallest act of remembrance, kind word, a true name spoken aloud can begin the journey back. Let us step softly into a world untouched by struggle, a world reserved for the honored and divine, the rooms of gold, the baths drawn from sacred springs, not just to who you were, but to something more whole. The bathhouse reflects this balance. It does not seek to punish its guests, no matter how strange or unpleasant. Even the stink spirit is welcomed, bowed to, and served, because that is the correct way to treat a guest. And when treated with care, even something foul can be revealed as sacred. Yobaba binds, Zaniba frees. Yobaba hoards, Zaniba gives. Yobaba imposes rules. Zaniba lives by grace, not because it is perfect, but because it follows a pattern ancient, symbolic, and deeply human. The scrolls, the seals, the contracts, the rituals, they are echoes of something older than the building itself. They represent the way we try to make sense of the unknown, how we bind ourselves to systems, to names, to jobs, to routines, and how sometimes we forget who we were before we signed the paper. They are not good and evil, but rather two sides of a spiritual economy: control and release, formality and sincerity, force and forgiveness. Between them lies a tension that animates the world of Spirited Away. This is how the spirit world takes you not through violence, but through comfort, through the ease of slipping into a role, of doing what is expected, of becoming who you need to be to survive. Instead, it whispers rules through routine. It tightens its grip through rituals performed so often they become invisible. It is not cruelty that governs here, but structure ancient, orderly, and deeply seductive. To work, to serve, to be useful. These things give a shape to existence. And in a place so confusing, so surreal and fluid, that structure can begin to feel like safety, but it comes at a cost. What is offered in exchange for this belonging is something fragile and irreplaceable. Identity. Yet within this system, there are soft rebellions, gentle reminders that not everything must be surrendered. A soot sprite offering a crumb of food with no expectation of return. A child remembering her name even as the world around her asks her to forget. A dragon lingering in the rafters, trying to recall the feel of moving water and river stones. These moments are small, but they matter. They are seeds of memory, of individuality, of something real. Even Yubaba, towering and theatrical as she is, does not wield absolute control. She is powerful, yes, but not omnipotent. This balance, too, is deeply rooted in Japanese cultural and spiritual thought. You begin to see that the bathhouse itself is sacred. But the story of Chihiro and Haku reminds us that identity is not so easily lost. It waits beneath the surface, patient and quiet. A name can be remembered. So, as the lanterns flicker low and the paper contracts are filed away, we leave this part of the bathhouse with a final thought. Forgetting is not always final. Now, let us rise one final time, higher still, past the clattering kitchens and sleeping soot sprites, past the wooden corridors and paper walls. It's time to explore the life of a spirit VIP. As we ascend to the uppermost levels of the bathhouse, the atmosphere begins to shift in a way that is both subtle and unmistakable. The clamor of the working floors, the distant calls of kitchen staff, the muffled footsteps of busy workers fades softly, as though filtered through thick layers of silk. The air grows warmer, but carries a gentler scent, now delicate traces of incense, polished wood, and a quiet perfume that seems too refined to name. There is a hush here, a reverent stillness that suggests not silence, but a kind of sacred waiting. The architecture becomes more elaborate, though never ostentatious. Shochi doors slide open to reveal gold leaf murals of cranes and flowing rivers, their paint aged but still luminous. The halls are lined with cedar and lacquered in deep reds, glowing softly under paper lanterns whose light flickers as though reluctant to disturb the serenity. Everything here feels deliberate for beings accustomed not just to comfort, but to being revered. These upper floors are not for the workers, nor for guests of the common variety. They are reserved for the very important spirit, those who carry with them centuries of myth and ritual, whose presence in the bathhouse is not simply an event, but a form of ceremony in itself. They arrive without introductions, for none are needed. Their forms are vast, strange, and ancient, towering masks, shifting mists, cloaked figures whose eyes flicker like candlelight. Regardless of appearance, their status is unquestioned. They are the remembered ones, the worshipped, the divine. The staff, many of whom have never been acknowledged by name, move more slowly in these upper chambers, not out of fear, but out of respect so deeply ingrained, it no longer requires conscious thought. Meals are prepared in advance, tailored with a precision that borders on clairvoyance. The baths here are infused with rare herbs and oils, steeped in centuries-old tradition and drawn to exacting temperatures. Spirits are attended to without being asked. Needs are met before they are voiced. It is not efficiency, it's reverence, practiced so long it has become instinct. One might think such surroundings would be joyful, yet there is a stillness in these rooms that borders on melancholy. Some spirits sit alone in their chambers, gazing out over the landscape in silence. Their movements are slow, unhurried, and their expressions unreadable. They are honored, yes, but also confined by that very honor, by rituals that never change, by comfort that no longer delight. There is no excitement here, only repetition. The finest meals taste the same. The most luxurious baths soothe the same aches. The reverence never falters, but neither does it evolve. The spirit, known as No Face, offers a peculiar reflection of this world. When he is mistaken for a VIP and lavished with gold and offerings, he swells grotesquely, not just in size, but in appetite and expectation. The bathhouse staff, unaware of his true nature, serve him with increasing desperation, feeding a hunger that grows insatiable. It is a portrait of indulgence detached from meaning, a mirror held up to the bathhouse itself, where service continues out of ritual, not relationship, and where status is determined more by performance than by substance. And yet, even this is not a critique. The bathhouse does not mock or condemn its elite guests. It simply serves as it always has. The structure here reflects something deeper in the world of spirited aware recognition, that even the divine can become stagnant, that even reverence can become routine, and that even power, when exercised too long without change, begins to fade into stillness. The upper floors are beautiful, but there is a quiet sorrow in their perfection. They are timeless, but also untouched by surprise. This too is part of the balance. Just as the workers on the lower floors toil through exhaustion and anonymity, the guests on the upper levels float through luxury and detachment. One is not enviable, nor is the other pitiable. They are simply two ends of the same structure, caught in ritual, preserved in a space where time does not press forward as it does in the human world. As we begin our descent from these rarefied chambers, returning slowly to the bathhouse's lower levels where fires dim and the soot sprites are curling up into sleep, we carry with us a final understanding of this place. The bathhouse is more than a building, more than a business, and more than a set of customs. It is a reflection of how we serve, how we forget, and how we sometimes, if only gently, begin to remember ourselves again. Though the luxury of the upper floors is undeniable, the stillness carries a strange weight, as if everything has been too perfect for too long. The carpets are thick and soft beneath the feet, yet they muffle footsteps that are rarely taken. Meals arrive in porcelain dishes with golden rims, but often remain untouched, their steam rising into empty rooms. But the absence of time is not always a comfort. When every day is flawless and unchanging, even joy becomes indistinguishable from habit, and the spirits, though divine, are not immune to the soft ache of being forgotten. The bathhouse provides everything, but in doing so, it asks its guests to want nothing. And over time, the wanting fades. The rituals are repeated not to preserve power, but because they are the only language this place knows. The golden dishes will be washed, the floors will be polished, the tea will be steeped to just the right temperature. When the silence becomes too heavy, even for spirits who have lived through centuries of storms and prayers, not for the grandeur of the upper floors, but for the quiet longing tucked beneath its beauty. A longing shared by all who dwell in ritual too long, by all who live within roles they did not choose, and by all who wait quietly to be known again. Of festivals lit by lanterns, laughter, and offerings laid at their feet by children who could not pronounce their names but spoke them with sincerity. Perhaps the bathhouse, in all its luxury, is not just a retreat, but a waiting room, a space between being remembered and being lost, even if no one is watching, even if the guest has not spoken in 100 years. The spirits here do not hunger, not in the human sense. The steam in the boiler room has softened to a gentle sigh, and the lanterns flicker low, as if bowing to the silence of the hour. Not the transformations or the flying paper charms, or even the contracts that bind names and fates, but the quiet insistence that care must continue, that reverence must be practiced even when its purpose has faded. There is a deep beauty in that, a kind of spiritual loyalty that goes beyond understanding. What they crave, if they crave at all, is something less tangible. Recognition, perhaps purpose. a reminder that they still matter. Some have come here for centuries, returning to the same suite, soaking in the same bath, performing the same rituals of rest. Others never leave at all, their forms fading in and out of view, so fused with the place that it's difficult to tell where the guest ends and the architecture begins. It is a beautiful form of stasis, but still it is stasis. And beneath the polished surfaces and soft light, one senses the faint hum of weariness, of time stretched too thin and meaning worn too smooth. There are no mirrors in the VIP rooms, no clocks, no calendars, nothing to mark the passing of time, because time is irrelevant in this world. These spirits, after all, are not the mischievous or playful ones that wander the bathhouse corridors in groups, nor the newly born river gods eager to be recognized. These are the old gods, the once powerful, the deeply honored. They are tied to long-forgotten shrines, fading rituals, and rivers that no longer flow. They are treated with reverence, not because of what they do, but because of what they once represented. And so, their presence is maintained through sheer force of tradition, through offerings, bows, and the careful, curated perfection of their surroundings. But perfection is a delicate thing. Over time, it hardens. What was once sacred becomes sterile. What once inspired awe becomes mere obligation. The bathhouse does not question this. It simply continues, as it always has. This is, perhaps, the truest magic of the bathhouse. And yet, one cannot help but wonder what happens when even the gods grow tired of being gods. When the rituals no longer nourish, perhaps they dream of the forests they once inhabited, of rivers that remembered their names. And so, as we gently close the sliding doors behind us and begin our descent back to the quieter corners of the bathhouse, we carry a kind of still reverence. The soot sprites are already asleep now, curled up like shadows in forgotten corners. Soon, we too will close our eyes. And so, the doors of the bathhouse slide softly shut behind us, not with finality, but with quiet understanding. Our footsteps once hurried along slick wooden floors, now slow to a whisper, as if the building itself is urging us to rest. The forgotten name of a river, the smell of cedar floors, always damp, always warm. It is not a place of villains. It is a place of roles, some chosen, some assigned, some inherited without question, meaning that has been wrapped in layers of tradition, performance, and myth. And Sharper Rules is not a tyrant so much as a custodian of memory, of power, of systems too old to rewrite. Its own contracts, its own names that we sign without thinking. Imagine the soot sprites curling into warm corners, their tiny bodies folded into sleep. And imagine Chihiro walking slowly, away not with fear, but with calm, her steps steady, her name remembered, herself intact. In that sense, the bathhouse is not so far away. It is simply a reflection made stranger so we can see it more clearly. That your thoughts move more slowly, like fog rolling over still water. Let them. There is nothing now to solve, nothing to recall, no need to be anyone other than yourself. She enforces order, but that order is brittle. In a moment, someone begins to really remember what they are and why they matter. The bathhouse begins to change. Not through rebellion, but through recognition. Through the soft resistance of someone speaking their own name aloud. The kind of meaning that can only be revealed when we slow down enough to notice the way a spirit sets down a teacup. You have walked its halls, touched its doors, breathed its incense-laden air, and that, in its own way, is enough. Or the way a child pauses before signing her name, or the way a dragon, silent for so long, suddenly remembers he was once a river, and in watching those roles be slowly challenged, we are reminded that transformation doesn't always arrive with thunder or clarity. Sometimes it arrives like a whispered name in a crowded corridor. Sometimes it arrives only when the world is very quiet. These small, repeated textures form the tapestry of a world that feels not foreign, but familiar because it mirrors our own in slow, subtle ways. We take names, lose them, assume new ones. We work, we forget, we hope to be seen. We too perform rituals without remembering why. The last wisps of steam curl toward the ceiling and dissolve. The fire beneath the boiler sighs low, and the night deepens into stillness. This story, like all stories, does not truly end. It simply recedes into quiet, waiting to be remembered again. The grime beneath the worker's fingernails, the ink on Yubaba's contracts. What we've seen was never meant to dazzle. It was meant to linger. The bathhouse is not a place of heroes. What lives in the bathhouse is not just magic, it is meaning. Even Yubaba, who rules from her high tower, with sharp eyes, the world outside the bathhouse may not have soot sprites or flying paper charms, but it has its own rituals, Let the spirits return to their rooms. T. Let the bathhouse sleep. Now, as the lanterns grow dim and the waters still, imagine the final guests turning in for the night. You may find in this moment that you too have softened, that the day's noise has quieted. You are not in the bathhouse, but you have been there. So rest now. Let the dream dissolve like steam on tile, and let sleep take you to gently, fully, without fear. You are remembered. You are safe. Good night.